Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Health Condition Corner. And thank you so much for your patience as we worked through a little bit of tech difficulty to get this started. I'm Sonia Thompson, Community Content Manager for Supply Side 365. But the guy who's going to be giving you all the goods today when it comes to formulating for joint health is none other than the herbal pharmacist, David Foreman. David, how are your joints today?
They're awesome. I had a wonderful cardiovascular activity of bike riding this morning, so I'm feeling all lubed up, ready to go.
Good. My joints are a little creaky. I'm sure there's an explanation for that, which you're going to get to shortly. But before you begin, I want to let everyone know that they can type any questions they have for you in the LinkedIn Live discussion thread. If we don't have time at the end of David's presentation to answer them verbally, he'll pop in there afterwards and provide a response. So without further ado, David, if you want to start sharing your screen, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sonia. It's an honor to be here again. Keep in mind that I think we've had about 8 or 9 of these health condition corners. The topics have been quite random, I must say. Everything from weight management to stress, sleep, etc. So if you're interested in learning more about those other topics and my spin on them, please check out Supply Side Network. They're all available there. And if you can see my Super Dave image there, that's just more of a joke for a couple of people. A good colleague of mine in the industry photoshopped my head on Superman because when I'm out and about in public, I often, if I'm waiting for a table and they say, "What's your name?" I say Super Dave. And for whatever reason, it seems to get me a table really quick. As Sonia just said, today's topic is dealing with joint health. And as I always do these, I like to give you a little statistical jump on things, dig into what's going on beneath the surface, et cetera. So, and I don't like reading slides, so I'm just going to point out a few things that I felt were kind of compelling. The first bullet point is probably the biggest one, which is that, 25% of the adult population in the U.S. has pain due to an itis condition. I'll explain what that means in a sec. Well, I'll tell you right now, itis, in medical terms, anytime the 4 letters ITIS follow whatever prefix, that itis means inflammation. So if you hear arthritis, arthur is the joint, and so it's joint inflammation. If you hear something like bronchitis, it's bronchial, which is your bronchial inflammation. So but in this case, 25% of the population has pain due to these itis conditions. And you can see it's going to grow. And I have a theory on why. I might cover it later. My theory doesn't necessarily mean anything to anybody, but I do have a philosophy on that. Another one I want to point out is that in the US, 44% of adults are physically limited and can't fully participate in just everyday fun activities. We're not talking about work here. We're talking about just, the quality of life things that we want to do. So, and everybody can read the slides. These presentations are available afterwards. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on these because we are limited and we did start late due to a few technical issues. But the point is, this is a very large category. For a long time, I always felt like there was a glut in this space, but there's also some really cool, innovative ingredients that are out there. And I'm also going to, throughout my presentation, show you some other opportunities to formulate a little beyond the box that we normally fit in. So again, common joint issues are words that end in itis. I mentioned Arthur earlier. Do have a friend named Arthur, so maybe that's not a funny one to him. But osteo, bursa, tendon, these are the 3 top itis conditions when it comes to joint health. Gout, which is actually a crystal formation. It's uric acid crystal formation in the joints. And I don't think they really call that a disease state, so I'm putting it here. And then any type of injury. And actually, I have had joint health issues in my right knee. I used to run half marathons every 3 to 4 weeks, and actually had an injury to my knee. So I'm no pun intended. I'm a walking testimony to a lot of what I'm going to discuss today. So again, let's just dig into what we're talking about when it comes to the joints. A lot of people think it's all about just where the ball and socket are. That would be the lower one where we're seeing the cartilage. So this is one end of your joint. They call it the ball. And the other part that kind of clamps around it, so to speak, is called the socket. That would be the area just to the the arrow that is pointing upwards. That would be that ball and joint area. And that's where we have cartilage. That's the flexible tissue that covers the ends of your bone in your joint. We also have tendons. These are what connect your muscle to your bone. These play an important role as well. And then ligaments are what connect bone to bone. And these are important to understand, because when someone is trying to get better from a joint health concern, it'd be best if we're formulating for a product that really focuses on the connective tissue aspect of it, to let them know that, and to also notify them that connective tissue doesn't necessarily heal and repair very quickly. So it can take months to years before they're going to experience the results they're looking for. So again, this is my famous tree. We should call it maybe we're going to get a graphic designer to change it to call it Dave's tree or Super Dave tree. I don't know. But it's always good to know, in order to really help mitigate a condition, whether you're trying to keep it from ever happening to you. The word we're not allowed to use in the industry is prevention, but we're not talking to consumers today, so I'm going to say it. Or, so if we're trying to prevent an issue, or we're trying to get rid of an issue, it's best to understand what's going on beneath the surface. Why? What is physiologically or biochemically going on? Luckily, I got beaten to death with that stuff in pharmacy school, and I'm here to share it with you today. So the primary reasons that people have issues with joint health or joint health problems are they have some sort of chronic inflammation. What might be triggering that? You never know. There could be that injury we just mentioned earlier. Person could be overweight. Before we went live, I was telling the people that are putting this all together about when I owned my pharmacy. I had a customer of mine who was scheduled for bilateral knee replacement, meaning both knees were going to get replaced. Her physician thought her recovery process would go much quicker if she lost some weight, because she was significantly overweight. So he gave her prescription weight loss drugs, and she actually lost 40 pounds and ended up not having to have surgery after all, just by eliminating the weight. There are also possibilities of deposits. We all wish it would be money, but no, it's not. It could be those crystalline deposits I mentioned with gout, or it could be mineral deposits, which we see with conditions like osteoarthritis. So, and then the last but not least area is the area of stress and mood. Probably not mood. We're going to throw mood out of there, because God knows I can get in a bad mood, but it's not going to necessarily affect your joints. But it's when people have chronic stress, there's a direct connection between stress and what happens in the body. I'll cover that towards the end of my presentation. And then other conditions that we may or may not be able to control, such as occupation, gender, age, health conditions like hyperthyroidism, an autoimmune condition, Lyme's disease, a viral condition, or just flat out overuse. These are all things that can be underlying contributing factors. So if we're really trying to help somebody to get better with their joint health condition, we can't change our age. So that one, we're out of luck. Can't change I guess I can't even say that anymore. Can't change my gender. But, these are certain things that we need to make sure we look into when we're trying to formulate for success. What can I control and not control? And then what ingredients actually fit into those positions, which is where we're going to go right now. We're going to talk about the I word, the word we're not allowed to use when we're marketing an ingredient. But again, we're among family today, so I'm going to use the word inflammation. Before I go any further, I decided to expand the number of ingredients that I'm listing on my slides today for everybody's edification and to tick a lot less people off. I did include brand names that were that actually I knew had the clinical substantiation that fell into that category. If you have a brand that fits into the category with this clinical substantiation for this talk, and I didn't put you in, I apologize. I can't put everybody in there. So I just, at least to give some people a flavor, I'm not being paid by anybody to do this. So I have no monetary hidden agenda behind anything I present today. So these are some of the key compounds, and you'll see some overlap. You'll see mostly overlap in areas of botanicals, because botanicals contain multiple phytochemical properties or nutritional properties that may have or impart multiple mechanisms of action in the body. certain things like collagen peptides, where things are broken down into different size peptides, can also have a role in different areas as well. So you see things intertwining. If I'm formulating, I'm probably going to look for those first, because then you're getting a 2-for-1 special, or maybe even that 3-for-1 special. So again, these are some of the ingredients I find to be the most effective. My favorites, I think in the industry, Boswellia has really come home. A lot of the Ayurvedic botanicals especially are making a huge pop. And one thing that I love about Boswellia, especially the ingredients I listed on this slide, is there's clinical substantiation showing that those ingredients are what I almost call experiential, where they're seeing results, or people are, same thing with Hydrocurc down below, Flexigo, same thing. These ingredients where people are seeing or feeling a result in a short amount of time. And so when we're trying to help a health condition, we're sometimes trying to help nourish, rebuild, replenish, to repair whatever might be wrong. But at the same time, we're also trying to give relief in the interim so somebody feels better. And if we can incorporate ingredients, like if I'm going to add omega-3 to something, somebody with one of the itis conditions probably is not going to feel a result in the first 3 to 5 days. It's probably going to be weeks to months down the road. So granted, these things all work well, and it's more about what you're trying to accomplish, how many areas of health you're really trying to accomplish a benefit. For me, omega-3s would be great because the average consumer understands them and identifies with them. But I think they identify mostly with the fact that they're good for cardiovascular health, maybe skin health, but that's about where it ends. And also the dosing is quite significant. So, when we're looking at these ingredients, biflavonoids are awesome because not only are they anti-inflammatory, but they're also awesome antioxidants. And some of those free radical scavenging ROS reducers also have a benefit on helping the body to help repair connective tissue, repair cartilage. So again, while we're looking at these, we need to keep these types of things in consideration while we're formulating. So for tissue support, again, I just mentioned why biflavonoids. The collagen peptides, this area is pretty huge. I apologize. I know there's a lot of other players out there. These two ingredients I mentioned actually had some pretty cool science behind them. Another really interesting one is eggshell membrane. Again, no financial affiliation with any of these things. One of my other really cool areas I've only just begun to learn more about is these collagen matrix ingredients that are on the market. I recently learned a lot about actually Mobility while I was at an industry event, and pretty compelling science. And the interesting thing about it is we're talking about using a very low dose to achieve the results. So again, supporting the tissue, but also with mobility, flexibility, et cetera. And then, kind of this another example is the combination of MPS, mucopolysaccharides, with hydrolyzed collagen and that ingredient. And then, of course, type 2 collagen, native type 2 collagen has some amazing research. It's a very low dose. It's actually not absorbed into the body. It triggers an immune response that actually is targeting your cartilage or targeting the connective tissue, and actually helps protect it from further damage. And in some cases will actually help in the rebuilding or repair of that connective tissue. Native type 2 collagen is actually something I'm considering adding. I only recently relearned about it in the last 5-6 months as part of my connective tissue damage I had from my running. Last but not least, I called this miscellaneous, and some of these could cross over to the previous categories. I mentioned biflavonoids earlier. That's what we're talking about, antioxidants. Again, antioxidants are going to help fuel the process of helping in the possible repair of connective tissue, and or at least protect connective tissue from further damage. Because of the aging process, because of things in our everyday diet, whatever it may be, all these things can cause damage. And so if we can, and collagen peptides will provide the nutrients that the body can use to either repair or protect as well. And I'm not going to read the whole list, but some Levagen Plus, another interesting ingredient, because not only does it have a benefit directly on pain, but it also has shown to be helpful with a little bit of the inflammatory response there too. So you get a kind of a mixed bag, and don't leave out the microbiome. You get a mixed bag here of different areas. Again, I know I'm like brushing a very light brush stroke across all the ingredients, and just pointing out a few hot buttons as to why. Keeping in mind that when we're going to look at formulating for success at the end of this, we need to keep in mind that we need to understand what the mechanisms of action are. Like Univestin, the studies show like improved mobility, flexibility, etc. Yet the underlying mechanisms are still not quite understood. So that's why a lot of these ingredients ended up on this slide, is that I feel like there might be a little more need for understanding why is it doing that. But the result is, again, another example, is Flexier has also shown to have that, ability to, improve mobility, flexibility, et cetera. So understanding the underlying mechanism, how these things work, is key. That's why these fit into the miscellaneous category. And then real quick, because I know I'll probably run out of time here in a few minutes, I wanted to talk about why stress impacts your joint health. And you can see it activates the HPA axis, hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. And by this, we get activation of glucocorticoids. That triggers more inflammation. It also increases vasodilation, which will trigger swelling in the joints. And anytime we have inflammation and or just vascular swelling, there's only so much room in that joint between that ball and the socket. There's only so much room in there. There's supposed to be a little bit of a gap. And when we have inflammation, there's no place for the inflammation to go. So what it does is it presses down hard on the nerve endings that are in there. And by pressing down, that's what triggers the pain. We also see that this prolonged negative effect that stress can have on the immune system will actually lead to joint damage as well. And then I listed off a few of my favorite stress ingredients, ashwagandha. I'm a personal consumer of Zembrin and Afron. Actually, I take magnesium every day. Actually, I take ashwagandha. The only one I'm not taking on that list is Bacopa. God knows I don't have any stress in my life, right? And then last but not least, weight management. This often gets overlooked. I gave my customer, my pharmacy, as an example. Considering perhaps adding a weight management type of ingredient to your list here. I'm not going to name them all off. But again, this opens you up to really being able to formulate for success. If you want to learn more about weight management, and there's a lot more ingredients listed, I would say highly recommend you refer back to my health condition corner on weight management. I think I did that in December, if I'm not mistaken. So let's think outside the box. I mean, that's so freaking cliche, right? I feel like I start outside the box. So if we're going to formulate for success, and you're just going to be joint specific, you're not going to think about those other underlying risk factors I mentioned earlier, then you want to look at combining ingredients that have multiple mechanisms of action, like combining Colavant, the type 2 collagen, with hydrocurd, a curcumin, with maybe a microbiome ingredients that have been proven to help with joint health, or maybe combining Boswellia with collagen peptides and Flexer. You get the idea. The other area, though, is formulating success based on condition. So maybe combining joint ingredients with your existing weight management or stress formulas, because those people probably may be already having some joint discomfort, or maybe chronic pain is an underlying reason as to why they actually have more stress, and or maybe they're having joint problems because they're overweight. And being overweight, usually that people do have more pain and discomfort and are less likely to be active, which is counterproductive for somebody that needs to lose weight. And or flip it, go maybe combine one of these weight or stress ingredients into your existing joint formula to give that added support. And then last but not least, I bring this home always. This is not my gig. It's your gig as a formulator, but consumers really have pill fatigue. God knows I do. And so, look at, in the US, gummies are still hot, but films, powders, sachets, shots, beverages, get creative. Try to think of things that people can incorporate into their everyday lives. Boomers are, I'm the last age of a boomer. I'm 59. We're less likely to be in the gummy category, but I can tell you Gen Z, Gen X, et cetera, they're really looking for people to have formulas outside the box, we'll say, and that fit their everyday lifestyle. And Sonia, I'm going to turn it back to you. My clock stops. I have no idea where the hell I am in this for time. And my apologies on my last bit of bad English there, on saying where the hell I am. It is who I am, regretfully. And we'll take questions if you have time.
I don't see any questions that have come through on the live, but I do have one that I would like to ask you, David. The one question that I have is, if ingredients alone can alleviate joint issues, or if all of these things need an element of activity in addition to the formulation.
So, yeah, man, that's a loaded one there. Thank you. Appreciate that. So this is how I think about it. I can definitely pick out, I'm a consumer, okay? So I have picked them out. For me, if I have specifically joint discomfort, I have a drawer where I take hydrocurc. It's the curcumin turmeric ingredient I talked about earlier. If I didn't have that, I'd probably use one of the boswellia ingredients, because I know they're going to help alleviate my discomfort quickly. The only time I'm going to want to combine those with others is if I'm really wanting to have more of that holistic approach to joint health. That's where those things come into play, like adding collagen peptides or adding a type 2 collagen to a product. Or, I gave, obviously, chondroitin sulfate, etc. So if you want a more holistic approach, because at the end of the day, the reason somebody has discomfort may not be the same reason I have the same joint discomfort. For me, I have connective tissue damage. So if I don't exercise regularly, stretch regularly, and take my supplements, then I have an issue because mine's from damage. Whereas somebody that has osteoarthritis, we'll just use that condition, they've got sand basically that's built up in their joint. Sand ends up grinding away the connective tissue. So in their case, they have inflammation that needs to come under control, but then they also have this need to maybe protect or repair the connective tissue they have left. And then just throw in one more spin, because it's outside your question, but if it's just a joint product, do you need to add something for weight or stress? Heck no, you don't. And I think maybe that was really your question. But for me, I feel like it's just considering that realm is another way to differentiate your product. And right now, you walk into any health food store and go to the joint health section or whatever, you're going to see just a plethora of ingredients that all have the same crap in it. It's not crap. Okay. Let me rephrase that. Okay. You're going to see a plethora of ingredients that have pretty much all the things I just mentioned in there. So at that point, it's like, how do you differentiate yourself from those people? Because anybody can buy any of those ingredients I just mentioned and put a product together, or they can let it sit there on the shelf as a standalone ingredient, which I think is naive, because then that doesn't make sense. So for me, anything I can do to differentiate my product from yours, microbiome is really hot. So if I could have a joint product that also has microbiome support, the consumer's going to know what that means already. They get it. Or if you say probiotic enhanced or whatever. So it's a long-winded answer and probably more than you were asking for, but I felt like it was appropriate at this time.
I think that's also why you say, think outside the box as far as the form factor that it comes in, because there are all of these that are in, may have the same ingredients that are in a pill format, but, kind of differentiate yourself by how you're providing it to the customer.
Yeah. I'll give you a really cool example on that one. So you're going to go work out, okay? And a lot of people nowadays, they'll have a shake or whatever before they go, or they'll have a shake or whatever when they come back, or they have a bar or whatever. Why wouldn't I want to put in collagen peptides everything? Again, it all boils down to like, what's the dose required and what'll fit into that, etc. So collagen peptides might not necessarily be an excellent example. It would in a powder, but not necessarily probably in a gummy. Whereas if I am working with a gummy, something like Colavant, N2 would be a great, because it requires like itty bitty 40 milligrams to get the dose by. So, but yeah, because I live in Florida, almost all my workouts are outside. I do go to the gym 2-3 days a week to lift weights. So for me, I do everything at home, but there's a lot of people I know that want to grab something and while they're driving to the gym, take it. And that's where that formulating or my my son's at work and actually has back problems because he's a boat mechanic, and it'd be much better for him to have a bar he could take as a snack onto the boats he's working on, etc. And be more realistic, especially for his generation.
Thank you, David. I know that we only have a minute left. There is a question that has come through. David from Ilias. Hi, Ilias. If you can jump in there and provide him with some feedback.
Sure.
We do want to do a quick plug for the next Health Condition Corner on September 2nd. Can you believe it's almost September?
It's September 5th.
September 5th. Okay.
Yeah, the 2nd is a Saturday, so I don't know about you.
Okay, yeah, let's do the 5th.
Yeah, so it's the 5th. Sorry, Sonia.
David, you're going to be talking about the Nootropics 101. So we'll have that registration open in the middle of this month. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And Super Dave, thanks again for another great session.
Appreciate it.
Also want to thank everyone for tuning in, watching live or on demand. So, and until next time, take care.